We thank you so much for watching Law School Made Easy at Law School Made Easy 256. Today, I want to look at the contents of a contract. And from our previous lessons or discussions, we have discussed elements which form a contract, and we know offer, acceptance, intention, consideration, capacity, and others as described in section 10. But today, we want to look at the contents of a contract, and particularly want to put our emphasis on contractual terms and mere representation. That while you form these contracts, there are many things which go around them. So we are saying those other words or writings or things we say in the process of the formation of the contract. So we want to know, do they amount to contractual terms, or are they mere representation? A contractual term is that point when you agree on certain things and they form part of the contract. However, mere representation are just inducements, words said with the purpose, with the aim to persuade the other person to enter into this particular contract that you are signing. Mere representation, we shall expound them more when we are dealing with misrepresentation in next semester. So, we are saying that, do these words we say, or do these elements form mere representation? Were they just words of inducement, inducing you to enter into a contract, or was it part of the contract? Was it a contractual term? So I want us to discuss about 4 ways of terms and mere representation. Let's begin with the time gap. The time gap. So we are saying that if you are making a business, for example, I am making a business with one Simon Peter, and then I tell Peter that this car you're going to buy is a model 1942, as we are negotiating 1942. So I tell that to Peter today on the 10th. So Peter comes back on the 12th. So let's say on the 17th, claiming that the car actually I wanted sold to him is a model 1930. Can he successfully sue? Time gap. So we are saying that if I talk to Peter on the 10th and he comes back on the 17th, he cannot sue. He cannot succeed. Why? The time gap is too big. He should have figured that out on time. If at that point you enter into an agreement and then you take more than 7 days without getting to know of that pertinent issue, then you cannot succeed, because it is now presumed that you were negligent. You should have found out about this earlier. That now explains, you can look up for the case of Lutrich versus Mackay. It clearly explains this principle, Lutrich versus Mackay, that it should be reasonable time. That if I make a statement, if it was in a shortest period, then I force you to sign, but you cannot go for 7 days, and then you come back and we sign, then afterwards you say, I found out that it is a model of 1930. It cannot work. You cannot succeed. So the assumption is that if I made this statement a mere representation, if I had made it to you just to coerce you to sign, and then you go and you sleep over it for 7 days, you come back and say, let us sign. It is a clear implication that you gave it time, you looked at it in the 7 days, and now you are ready to sign, so you cannot succeed. Negligence is very important element. We shall look at this when we reach second year. The case of the case of Donok and Stevenson and very many others. So let's go to the second one. We are saying of knowledge or skill. Knowledge or skill. Knowledge or skill. Now, knowledge or skill, if you have worked, let's say, if you have worked in a car dealership for more than 10 years, 15 years, it is assumed that you have the skill and the knowledge. You know the amount of business you are, so you know the type of business you're doing. You are an expert in that area. Of course, when you look at, when you come to next semester, shall look at undue influence, duress, and then we know of the relationship between the doctor and a client, a sick person, and then lawyer and fiduciary relationship. We shall look at them later. But for now, let's focus on knowledge and skill. The assumption is that you are an expert in that area. So me who has come to buy a car, whichever information you give me, I am going to take. I will rely on it because you have my trust. I know you are an expert in that. You are even bragging. You're telling me, I've been in this business of selling cars for about 20 years. So you have the skill. You have the knowledge. So whatever you say during the process of entering into this contract will be used against you. Because the assumption is, I'm the green person here, you're the expert. Let's look at the case of Dick Bentley Productions versus Hal Smith. That Dick went to Harley to buy a car, and Harley told him this car had moved only 100 miles, 100,000 miles. But to find out, it had moved more than that. So it was held that Dick's case would succeed simply because he relied on a word coming from a specialist. That he's the specialist in this. That Hal Smith was a car dealer who had been there for so many years. So he ought to have known the mileage of the car, not to lie to Dick Bentley Production. So I think you can say that if the statement is coming from a doctor, from an expert, then it is assumed that they have the knowledge, and that statement is part of the contract and it's not a mere representation. Let's go to the importance of a statement. That importance of a statement, while we are dealing, there will be statements which are said, and that is the gist of the whole contract. So they must be taken as very important. If you go astray against those important statements, then you will be held liable. Let's look at the case of Bannerman versus White. Now, Bannerman wanting to buy sulfur, but sulfur without oops. I don't know if I can't recall, but I'm saying sulfur. Yeah, he had wanted sulfur for his plant, but oops, but without sulfur, something like that. Now, on telling this person that he was clear on what he wanted. For example, I tell you, I want you to give me rice, but rice without stone. I am clear that because if you give me rice without stone and I give it to my people, it will cause ABCD. They don't eat it. So you are clear that make sure in this rice there's no stone. And now the buyer tells you the rice I'm giving you is actually the one. It has no stones. So you buy. On reaching home, rice has gotten stones. the oops had sulfur in them, to come back to the case. So it was held that White was liable because Bannerman explained to him that I want oops without sulfur because sulfur kills my plants. So you refusing and now giving him the one which had sulfur, so you are held liable and you're there for damages. So that is the importance of a statement. Let's go to reduction of some contracts into writing as the last one. Reduction of contracts into writing. Now, of course, it means that when you reduce a contract into writing, then you are bound by what you have really written. So it is really hard to bring in oral evidence. But look at this. Courts have decided that courts may from time to time infer oral evidence into written material. That courts will look at the whole situation, and if they think that these people might have intended to include this oral into their argument, then courts are able to make oral argument to be admissible into written form. That courts can always infer and put in these oral suggestions or arguments which you enter with people, but you miss out when you're writing you. So that is now at the discretion of the judges and courts. So that is how you come along a contractual term and a mere representation. And very many others, collateral contracts, look at implied terms, express terms, and others. So we thank you so much for watching Law School Made Easy at Law School Made Easy 256. We thank you. Subscribe, share, like our videos. Thank you.